Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to this second edition of the YVI podcast. YVI stands for Youth Veterinarian Initiative, and this is a STEAM education program that is run by my nonprofit organization, the Wells International Foundation. I am Dr. Monique Y. Wells. I am the founder and CEO of the Wells International Foundation, and I call us WIF, W-I-F for short. And I am so excited to bring to you today this second edition of our podcast series for the 2022-2023 academic year. And we are welcoming today Antonia Nickleberry, who is a veterinary student at St. George's University School of Veterinary Medicine. And I'm going to give you just a brief introduction to Antonia, and then we're going to have her come off mute and I'm going to ask her a lot of questions. And I want to encourage you to ask questions as well. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but if there's anything that you have a burning desire to ask during this process, then just go ahead and raise your hand and we will get your question answered. So Antonia Nickleberry is a first-generation college student from Texarkana, Texas. And I'll say that I am also a native Texan from Houston. Antonia was accepted as an undergraduate student at Texas A&M University and graduated from there in 2016 with a Bachelor of Science in Wildlife and Fisheries Sciences. She went on to enroll at Concordia University-Texas and earned a master's in business administration there in 2019. And she enrolled at St. George's University School of Veterinary Medicine in January of 2020 to begin her veterinary education. So she is in her last semester of her third year and will be entering her fourth year of veterinary school in January 2023. Now, Antonia is in a field, and the whole reason that we have the Youth Veterinarian Initiative is to introduce underrepresented minorities in veterinary medicine, and that is predominantly Black and Brown youth, to the field. She has had the experience of this minimal number of Black people in the field, and she felt a lack of support within the profession. So she created an organization called 2.1, and I'll have her explain about that later in our call. But the mission of her organization is to provide educational, financial, and mental health resources to aspiring and current Black veterinary students. So I just need to have you come off mute, Antonia, say hello to everybody, and then we will get going with our interview.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I'm just thankful for the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
It is a real pleasure. We are going to be talking about your journey to vet school. So when I put out the advertisement, the promotion for this podcast, I called it How I Got to Vet School. And so that's really what I want you to explain to us today, just in, we don't need to be complicated, just frank, honest, and simple discussion. And I'm going to just ask you a few questions and you just respond. And Anna and Kamira, jump in whenever you feel that you're ready. Okay. So first of all, Antonia, I wanted to ask, what experience made you decide to become a veterinarian? And at what point in your life did that happen?
So I'm a country gal. I grew up in a very, very small town, like barely grass, red clay dirt, and we had a lot of animals. We had dogs and cows and horses and donkeys and pigs, you name it, we had them. But like I said, we were in the country, like veterinarians, I didn't even know what that was. We took care of our animals the best that we could. And I think that I always knew that it was something else to it. Like, I know we can do more for these animals. And I wanted to know, like, why is that dog limping? Or, why did that dog suddenly die? I think those things kind of triggered those questions in my head as a really, really young kid. But again, being in the country, I just wasn't exposed to what veterinary medicine was. I had no idea. So I think at about 12 is when I learned, like, what an animal doctor was, what a veterinarian was. And so at that moment, I was like, that's what I want to do. And I ran with it.
All right. And from that moment on, what did you do to prepare yourself for this journey?
Ooh, can you really prepare? So I think that I've always been like a research girl. I've always been like, let me get on and see what they're saying. So I started researching what does becoming a veterinarian entail? How do I become a veterinarian? Even like in middle school, I was trying to figure it out. And so at that point, I realized Texas A&M was the only vet school in Texas. So I started setting my sights on Texas A&M. Focusing on my grades, making sure I had good grades. I started doing after school science programs and everything that, you figure out you need in order to get into college and then on into veterinary school. So I just got really involved, head down, just focused on my grades and being the best student that I could be so I could get into college and then get into veterinary school.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing with the YVI podcast is serving youth. As I said, we are introducing youth, particularly Black and Brown youth, because these two minority groups are, well, with the exception of Indigenous, obviously, are the lowest represented in the veterinary field.
Mm-hmm.
We have over 90% of veterinarians in the United States are white. And so many people have a story like yours in that they just are not exposed to veterinary medicine. They don't even know that it's a possibility for them. And so we're doing these podcasts to shed the light, open the door, let people see. And we're also going to be, this year, we are launching a program called the YVI Book Club and Merit Badge Program. And so we are going to have these youth, in particular schools and community groups, do some reading. So we're going to be assigning books throughout the year that are going to, first of all, increase their reading skills, but they're going to be book on STEAM type activities. So they will be seeing on an academic level, even at their grade level, which is 4 through 8. Those are the people who are coming to YVI Book Club and Merit Badge Program. Just seeing what it means to read and understand about animals and be curious and want to do more. And kids are going to be able to earn merit badges for the reading that they do. And then they're going to be able to go to, if they're selected, they're going to be able to go to a summer camp next summer so they can have the hands-on type of experiences that you had growing up.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really exciting. And
That's
so,
thing.
yes, it is going to be amazing. And Ana Munoz is one of the educators who's at one of the schools that is participating in our YVI Book Club and Merit Badge Program. And so the kids will be able to watch these recordings if they're not able to come on live, because it is Saturday morning after all. But they'll be able to watch these recordings and get inspiration from people just like you. And so that's why this is really so important and why I'm so excited about it. So let's go on and talk about you're aware now that this is something you want to do. You're doing your research and you're figuring out what you need to do. And so what kind of obstacles did you find along your path?
Like you said, like just the lack of exposure, the lack of representation, and then also me being a first generation college student. So once I got into undergrad and just trying to figure out, what it is to be a college student, I really didn't have anyone to turn to ask those questions because I was the first one in my family to like go off to school. So it was very difficult to try to maneuver through college and try to figure it out at the same time, and that reflected in my grades. And so looking to academic advisors or even faculty members that looked like me, which at A&M is not very many, that was also a struggle because once my grades started to drop, yeah, academic advisors saying like, I don't know if vet school is for you, you're struggling in your sciences. And the same thing with those faculty members that look like me, maybe you should consider something else. And it got to a point, when I hit, maybe my senior year, I was like, oh, maybe they're right. I was so beaten mentally and like academically that I just couldn't even fathom going forward in vet school, knowing it would be so much more difficult than undergrad. And so for a moment, that those things did register. And people just have to be mindful of what seeds they plant into students who are trying to grow and trying to figure it out. Because even me, as a person who's normally headstrong and I'm self-motivated, I usually don't need anyone to tell me how to do anything or anything like that. At certain points of my academic career in undergrad, I was so beat that those things started to plant and grow inside of me. So when I finished at A&M, that's what led me going towards my MBA. Even though I've always wanted to get a master's in business, I kind of pushed more into it because I was like, well, maybe I'm not going to be able to get into vet school. Maybe this is my route, since I kind of have this innate business mind. Let me go ahead and like maximize that part of me. But at the moment, I was working at a architecture firm as an administrative assistant, and I wasn't fulfilled as much as, you know, I wanted to be. I just wasn't. And I kept kind of reflecting back to, oh, what about vet school? And I had a friend who was actually in vet school at the time at Tuskegee, and I talked to her about it, and she was like, you know what, look, like, you're gonna regret it for the rest of your life if you don't go for it. And so I was like, okay. And I talked to one of my sorority sisters, and she gave me a similar message. She sent me a word from Pastor Mike at Transformation Church, and I sat back and I watched it, and I was like, you know what? I'm a part of vet school. And so I did. But, you know, I definitely had struggles, you know, mentally trying to get to that point after a certain point in my undergrad career, because I was so beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mental health aspect of veterinary medicine is a very important one to understand from the very beginning. From everything that people go through just to get into vet school. And before, I have to say, before you go to vet school, you have to go to an undergraduate institution. And so there are several years of school before you even get to vet school. And then you go into vet school. And then if you want to specialize, there's years of internship and residency after that. So it's not for the faint of heart. And you really do need to develop a support network from the moment that you decide that this is what you want to pursue as a career. It is never too early. So even if you are in elementary school and you decide you want to become a veterinarian, that is the time right then and there to start to look for people who are going to support you in that. Okay. Very, very important. So how many schools did you actually apply to?
I applied to 6 schools. 6 schools.
Okay.
And another thing to talk about in this moment, talking about applying to school, is that, you know, you have the mental health aspect of things, and you have the financial aspect of things.
Yes.
Because applying to schools it's expensive. I think I spent well over $1,000 just applying to 6 schools, because you have your base, you know, application pay, then you have your supplemental application pay, and all of that stuff adds up very quickly. But yeah, 6 schools.
Okay. And where were they? You talked about A&M. Can you talk a little bit, just before you tell us which schools you applied to, talk about the situation with regard to the number of veterinary schools that there are overall in the US, in North America, I'll say, and how people are selected to go into vet school depending on where you live?
Right. So I can't think of the exact number. I think it's like 29 maybe across the US of veterinary schools, which that number is very small compared to medical schools, as far as like human medical schools. And so the selection process varies from school to school, but, you know, they want to know your grades, you know, your community service, different things that you've done in order to kind of form this ideal applicant, right? And so one of the things that I did, especially when I made up my mind, okay, I'm going to apply to vet school, even with my struggles academically, I, again, did my research, and I got in contact with admissions faculty, and I set up meetings, and I sat and I talked to them, and I asked them, hey, like, quite frankly, let's talk about my chances on getting into your institution. And some of them said, hey, if you do this, retake this class, you have a chance. And some of them said, listen, you probably won't get in. And as much as that sucked, I would much rather know that now than spending an additional $200 or $300 applying to that school. So that's kind of what I did. It's very hard to get into vet school the first time around. And many people who are in vet school will tell you I applied, 2 times, 3 times. Some I know in my class applied like 8 times.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people, it takes time. It takes time. And, for me, I thank God that I got an opportunity with my first time applying. I didn't get into vet school directly. I went into a program called the Foundations Program here at SGU, which is a program that the schools in the US don't have. But basically the program, you go in, you take all these advanced science courses, and you have to finish with a 3.0 GPA, and you have to take an exit exam. And once you take that exam and you meet all the criteria, you earn your spot in the next class for vet school. And so that's what I did. And usually with that program, maybe it's because you've been out of school for a long time, or maybe you had some struggles with your sciences. They put you in that program first in order to better prepare you for veterinary school.
Okay. That's her dog. We're going to meet her dog in a little bit. Okay. So first you said SGA. So SGA is St. George's, right?
Yeah. No. SGU, St. George's
SGU.
University.
Sorry, SGU. Yes. Okay. And St. George's is in Grenada.
Yes, it's in Grenada, West Indies, which is the Caribbean. It's pretty close to Trinidad and Tobago. Pretty close.
Okay, so that is an option if you're not going to a mainland school. There are options as well. And last year we had actually a professor from Ross University, which is in St. Kitts, as a speaker. So I want people to understand that there are those options, as well as schools that are on the mainland of the United States. Yes. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure that people understand is that when you are born in a state, or live in a state, I should say, where there is a vet school, then the tuition is going to be cheaper at that school, and it's going to be easier for you to get in. If you want to go to a school that is not your home state, it's going to be much more expensive, and there are going to be fewer spots for you in that school.
Right, that is a good point. For example, I went to Texas A&M. I didn't apply to Texas A&M, but if I did, then I would have had a better chance of getting in based off of I went there undergrad and I was a Texas resident, but I knew I wasn't going to get in because of my grades, so I didn't even apply. Or at least not that it was going to be more difficult for me to get into that school. I may have had to apply more than once, or things of that nature. But a lot of times they have their set amount of slots for their resident students within that state, and they have a few on the side for those who are out of state. So just reiterating what you said, that there are more spots available for you in your home state. But again, there are always options. There's St. George's University, there's Ross. There are a couple other schools outside of that. I don't know much about them. I know more about St. George's and Ross because I applied to both of them, and they both are North American accredited. The other universities aren't. So you could go to, I think there's one that's St. William's or something like that on another island, but you have to go through different tests and all that stuff to get accredited as a North American veterinarian. So it's a little more of a process. It's not that it's not an option, but there's more to it once you get there.
And so what are some of the other schools that you applied to? Did you apply to Tuskegee?
I did apply to Tuskegee. I applied to St. George's, Ross, Tuskegee, I'm blanking. I think Iowa.
Okay.
Wisconsin. And there's one more that I can't remember. I can't remember the last one, but it was 6. It was 6.
Okay, so you can be ready to, you have to be ready to, well, potentially ready to move perhaps a long distance from where you're used to living. In order to go to veterinary school.
Yeah, and some people, some of the people that I know who applied multiple times to Texas A&M, for example, I worked on a doctor who said he applied 3 times, but he was very set on going to a specific school. I mean, if you're set on going to a specific school, that's fine, but I really encourage people not to narrow their opportunity like that, because I was pretty set on Tuskegee when I was in my application process, but now that I'm at St. George's University, I can't see myself any other place. So just really, keep your eyes open, keep your options open. Don't like narrow your opportunities like that, because you just really never know the experience you're gonna have at any university. So.
Okay. All right. And so when you finally got to vet school, was it what you expected and was it what you hoped for?
When I finally got to vet school, I think you can't prepare. There's no way to really prepare for what comes of vet school. Vet school challenges you in so many ways, not only mentally, but physically, spiritually, financially, like every level of being, vet school like pushes. And I mean, it seems tough while you're in it, but there's so much of character development that happens while you're in vet school, really figuring out like, oof, like who am I really, and where do I fit in this profession, and how can I make this profession better? Hopefully, I hope that those are the questions that you're asking, because it's more than just the grades. It's more than just the title. You really are investing yourself into this profession. So it's definitely been challenging, but it's been extremely rewarding. I mean, the further you go into your curriculum, the more rewarding it gets. Like I was telling you before we started recording, I'm currently doing lecture-based learning in the mornings and then clinical-based learning in the evenings, where I am like applying all of these things that we've learned in the past 3 years hands-on, and really like making sure that everything is connecting. It's extremely rewarding. Like last week, we literally like treaded through a rainforest to a goat farm, but literally like walked like maybe like 7 minutes through the rainforest to this guy's farm. And in a moment, you're like, what is happening? But in hindsight, it's like, this is an experience that I'll never forget. And students who are, on the mainland will never, like, they can't really relate to this experience, but it's great. It's hard, but it's great. I've enjoyed it. I've laughed, I've cried, I've celebrated, but it's worth it.
All right. I'm glad you think it's worth it, because
Yeah.
it's a long road. If it doesn't end up being worth it, then that would really be sad. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to show everyone some slides of things that you've been doing, so that people can actually see you in action, quote unquote. They're still photos, but you'll be able to see what Antonia has been doing. And let me get this back to the top. I need to put this in full screen mode if I can do that. There we go. Full screen mode. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Is that okay?
Yep, I can see it.
All right. So this is just the intro slide. It says fourth year student. She's going into her 4th year. St. George's University, School of Veterinary Medicine, Grenada. I say Grenada because I'm used to Spanish and French. Okay, but it's in the Caribbean. All right, so here we go. Now here you are, and you have on, what are you wearing?
I am in black scrubs and in my white coat with my stethoscope around my neck and my beautiful knotless braids. This is actually one of my individual shots from our Black History Month photo shoot that we had last semester with Voice. Voice is Veterinarians as One Inclusive Community for Empowerment. It's an organization we have here on campus, but it's nationwide. And at the time I was president. So this is one of those photos.
All right, and you're looking pretty snazzy there.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so why don't you tell us what you're doing here?
So in this picture, you can see that, well, you can kind of see that this is a cow in front of me. I am holding his testes in my hand. And what we are doing, we are learning how to do a breeding soundness exam. This was for my theriogenology class. And so a part of that exam is for us to palpate or feel the testes, make sure they're symmetric, make sure there's no inflammation, make sure they're the right consistency, which is like a tennis ball type of consistency, which is one of several parts of that breeding soundness exam. We also measure them for circumference, because circumference kind of aligns with sperm production. So yeah, that's what I was doing.
All right. And what are you doing here?
So this is for my exotics class that I had in term 4, which was a term that we had when we first came back from the craziness of the COVID pandemic. And we were learning how to get blood on fish. So this fish that you see me holding was anesthetized or sedated. And we were able to practice on them and figure out how to take blood on fish. And after that, we put them in their recovery buckets for them to wake up. It was a pretty wild experience. I never knew that was a thing with fish, but it was pretty fun. A lot
And so
easier
what,
than
easier than you think? Okay. For what reason would we want to take blood on a fish?
So, in the marine world, they do a lot of research and things of that nature. You may want to take blood to see if there's some type of sickness going on, or even test the scales for parasites. Different reasons you want to take blood to just analyze the health of that fish and all of the fish that may be within a certain tank or anything of that nature, or in a certain region of the ocean, just to see what's really going on. It's still fairly new to me, even though that was term 4. I don't do a lot of fish work, but it was fun. It was fun for sure.
All right. So we got cows and now we have fish. And so what's next? We have this dog. What happens here?
This is my very first surgery patient as a lead surgeon. I've watched many surgeries, I've assisted with several, but this patient was the first that I was able to be the lead surgeon and do the cutting and do the suturing. So this was us post-operation, recovering, waiting for him to wake up from being, sedated. He was still a little sleepy. In this photo, he was actually woke, but he tucked his head under my arm. I think he was trying to avoid the light. But yeah, he was waking up, and the surgery it went really, really good. So.
All right, and I see your name on your scrub cap.
Yeah, that's me.
All right. Next, this is another surgery, and we have the surgical field blotted out for people who are faint of heart. Okay, so go ahead.
So this is me, my classmate Pete, and my other classmate in the background, Stephanie. We are working on a 130-pound mastiff that had a big mass on his right ventral abdomen, or on the bottom of his tummy. And it was previously diagnosed as a lipoma, but we were going in with the help of a professor, of course, to remove that mass. So that's what we were doing. And at this point, I believe we were done with removing the mass, and my classmate was actually suturing up, and I was assisting him with the suturing. But yeah, this was this term, and the picture on the last slide was from last term. When I say term, I mean semester for those who are in the US, because we don't use term in the US. That was new to me when I came to St. George's.
Right, that's right, we don't. Okay, and so and a lipoma is what?
It is basically a fatty mass. I hate to say tumor because tumor sounds cancerous, but basically it's a fatty tumor. It's a benign tumor. Benign meaning that it's not going to spread. It should be a fairly good prognosis, as long as it doesn't, change into something else or whatever the case may be. But usually pretty safe mass that can be removed.
All right. And then we have you here. Tell us what you're doing here.
So I am in the background with the hood on. That's me. And more towards the front is my best friend and classmate, Taylor. I've known her since A&M days. Okay. And we are doing some sea turtle research. If you can see in the middle, there's a sea turtle. At that point, we were measuring the width of her. We had already measured the length of her. And so this program is called Ocean Spirits. It's ran by our Wildlife and Exotics Club. We team up with a sea turtle research team out here, and we kind of help them collect data and analyze different things. Sometimes they come up and we tag them. If they're already tagged, we make note of it. We mark where she lays her eggs, and so they're able to go back and check those eggs to make sure everything, they're not eaten by any, predators or anything like that. So just assisting in sea turtle research, it was extremely fun, but also very tiring. I was telling you before we recorded that, we went out there at 8 p.m. and we didn't leave until 6 a.m. So it was a long night. We saw 2 sea turtles, so it was worth it, but it was a very long night for us.
All right. So a wide variety of animals that you're able to work with. And I think that's an advantage of being at a school in the Caribbean, because certainly people who are in school on the mainland will never have this experience.
Right.
Okay, and then let's look at this. Is the last picture. So what's happening here?
This is me in Kingston. This is who you heard growling in the background because he heard someone walk by. He is a French Bulldog Boston Terrier mix. We were outside taking some pictures for our virtual Black History photo shoot because at the time this was during the pandemic and we weren't able to do our in-person shoot. So this is just like a candid that my uncle caught of us in the backyard of him licking my chin. But yeah, that's my boy.
Okay.
He's been with me every step of the
Fantastic.
way.
So, okay, so this was the last slide that I wanted to show. I just wanted to give everybody an idea of the different kinds of things that you can do as a veterinary student. Part of the learning experience is to do hands-on work. You can't just, go out there and just start. You have to have done practice in school before you can go out and work in this way. And so I thought it was just nice to be able to show everybody the wide variety of things that you're doing, and you're entering your 4th and final year.
Yes.
So what is going to happen in this coming year?
Okay, so real quick, I wanted to hit on a point of you talking about the experience that I'm doing here in vet school. One thing I feel like I failed to mention earlier on my path to vet school was getting experience, right? So one thing that is important is not necessarily required for every vet school, but it is recommended that you get some type of exposure to what veterinary medicine is prior to applying to vet school. So if you're in high school and there's a vet clinic down the street, just pop in and say, hey, can I shadow, this day and this day? Just try to get as much exposure as possible because you want to make sure that this is what you want to do. It seems like you're just petting puppies and kittens from the outside looking in, but this is a very challenging field, mentally, physically. So make sure you take the time to get that experience before entering into vet school. Okay.
Yeah,
I wanted to get that away.
For sure. And shadowing means it's just like a shadow. So you would be following behind the veterinarian, the vet techs, and everybody just watching what's going on.
Right. Exactly. And sometimes you'll find some doctors who are cool, who'll let you, glove up and help them with, minor procedures and things of that nature, just to kind of get your hands dirty as much as they can. We have licenses that we have to keep, but some of them will let you get your hands dirty. So just make note of that. That's also very important.
Okay. And so tell us about 4th year coming.
4th year. So I'm at St. George University, which is an island school. So when we go into 4th year, we leave the island and we go back to the mainland. And so that process for us is we do research, we figure out what school we want to go to in our 4th year because we're leaving our home of a school. And so what they do is it's kind of a class ranking system based off your GPA, and the higher your GPA, the higher your rank, the higher your chances to get into the school that you want to get into. So for me, I chose Ohio State as my first choice. And the reason I chose that is because I had a Black friend who was there who felt as if she immediately found a community of students of color, veterinary students of color, that she could mesh into immediately as she got to Ohio State. For me, that was very important. another thing was she had a great work-life balance. And so some schools will take advantage of the fact that you're a fourth-year student and you're kind of on their watch, and they will work you for X amount of hours. And, you know, I understand that the students need that experience, but I also understand that mental health is important, and especially in the state that the field is in right now. So I really felt that that was important. So those are two of the top reasons I chose Ohio State. But fourth year is clinical year. So that basically means that everything that you've learned in the classroom from years 1 through 3, you're applying it every single day in this final year. You're getting your hands dirty. There's really no more of going to lectures or anything like that. You're going in and you're basically a mini doctor for a year. And you have these different things called rotations. And what that means is every 2 weeks or so, depending on your school, you'll be doing a certain specialty. So one week I may do one rotation I may do internal medicine, then the next rotation may be diagnostic imaging, then the next rotation may be emergency medicine, then the next, like, so it's different specialties that you rotate through, and that's why they call them rotations. And so that's the majority of clinical year. And also during that time, you're studying for your NAVLE, which is the licensing exam, the North American Veterinary Licensing Exam. And so that exam you have to pass in order to practice as a clinician, as a veterinarian. And so that's also what we'll be doing during fourth year. I'm actually going to start studying for that in November, because a lot of the schools are now making students take the test in the earlier window. So there's 2 windows. There's the April window and like the November window where you can take the test. And historically, they let students choose which window that they wanted to take the test with, but with the pandemic, I think a lot of the scores nationwide reflected that the pandemic was happening and the pass rates kind of dropped. So a lot of the universities are implementing that students must take it in an earlier window, including St. George's University. So we're actually taking the NAVLE in April. So I will start studying for the NAVLE in November. So
Okay.
busy, busy, busy.
Busy, busy, busy. Do not underestimate the busyness and embrace it, okay? So what advice do you give to kids who might want to become veterinarians or work in any animal-related field?
Oh, well, this is a field where there are not many people who look like you, right? But that does not mean that you don't belong. You do belong. If this is what you want to do, just keep at it. And like you said earlier, find you a community of people and a network of people who are going to pour into you, who are going to push you, who are going to motivate you, because once you choose this, whether it's, you know, like you said, elementary or it's high school or it's in college, you're going to meet, you know, inevitably you're going to meet challenges, especially if you're a student of color. It's going to be tough. It's going to be days where you're going to, you know, second guess yourself. It's going to be days where you just are angry, but just keep pushing forward. You are worth it. You are needed, and you can do it. So I just really think that if this is what you want to do, then you can do it. I know sometimes it seems like you may not have the support, you may not have the exposure, you may not see someone that looks like you, but you can do it. And let it be clear that just because someone doesn't look like you doesn't necessarily mean they're the enemy. I have support from many people that don't look like me, but I am aware that there's a different comfort level when it comes to representation. So keep doing it, keep pushing, keep your grades up. Stay involved. You know, it's great to have a 4.0, but if you have a 4.0 and you don't have anything social to show on your resume, that's a red flag for a lot of schools. So make sure you're involved, make sure you know how to communicate, because that's important. You know, we like to zone in on our patients, which are animals, but it's also very important to have that doctor-client communication, and you need to be able to communicate. And a lot of times being involved helps you with your communication skills. So all of those things, it'll help you. Keep pushing. You got it. If you need anything, you can contact me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you can reach out. I'm always here to help.
Fantastic. And in that vein, tell us about 2.1, the organization that you founded.
Yes. So 2.1 was created in August of 2020. I I told myself when I came to vet school, I wanted to do something. And initially I was like, oh, I'm going to vlog or blog and all this stuff. And I soon realized like, that's not, that's not for me. I don't even like hearing my own voice. How am I going to vlog every week? So then I sat down and I just started thinking about my own obstacles. And I realized that there are so many resources out there that I didn't know about, especially in undergrad and going into vet school. So I made this platform specifically catered to the increase of Black representation in veterinary medicine. So I have educational resources, financial resources, mental health resources that all can be found on the website. And anything that you need really should be there. It's for high school students, it's for undergraduate students, and D.V.M, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine students. So far, we've given away over $4,000 in scholarships. We've given away scrubs, we've given a book away, and we've also given a stethoscope away. And so as 2.1 gains more exposure and gain more resources, we really want to continue to give and give a lot more. And, I really hope that one day we can pay for an entire fourth year for a student or something like that, and that's a lot of money, but hopefully one day we'll get there for sure.
That is fantastic. So spell out the URL so I can type it in the chat.
It is, let me make sure I do it right, 2.1, that's TWOPOINT ONE vetmed VETMED.com.
Okay.
Perfect.
There it is.
Yeah.
So Kamara and Anna, if you want to grab that and you can look at it at your leisure. I'll also send it out in I'll post it when I post this recording. I will post this URL on YouTube so people can have access to it. Absolutely. So I want to ask anybody if you have any questions right now for Antonia or comments.
No, I actually thank you for everything, because since we're going to start the program pretty soon, it actually gave me a lot of support so I can start with my group, telling them everything about it, and see, I'll give them the advice how to start it. And it is definitely a lot for them to consider and give them the beginning on how to start it. And definitely having you aboard and see how to start it, because sometimes they know exactly how they want, but they don't know how to start it, and they don't know how difficult it is, because they have a goal but they don't know how to start it. And it's in the community that we live, they're not exposed. They're not exposed, and the and the resources are not in there. And so it's hard for them. So it's definitely somebody to look for them and expose them. Is at early ages, it will be the goal to fulfill and to see where they're gonna be, So I like that. So I'm very happy, and thank you, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. And if you need anything, I'll put my email in the chat, and feel free to contact me about anything. If you want me to come, or pop in on the Zoom and talk to the kids, I'll be back in the States next year. If I'm able to come and talk to them, I'll do so. So if you need anything, just feel free to reach out.
Definitely. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
That would be fantastic. And Kamara, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not have any questions. I enjoyed the meeting and everything. Because I actually want to be a vet as well.
Okay.
And so I'm still in high school. So.
What grade are you in?
11th.
Okay. Have you done any shadowing with veterinarians?
No, ma'am.
Do you have any in your area that you could ask?
I do.
Okay, very good.
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna ask the volunteer, see, can I help out with anything? Like y'all was saying.
Yeah. definitely make sure you know, get out there and try to get your hands dirty, try to get some exposure, because again, you know, from the outside looking in, it's all unicorns and rainbows, but you know, really getting in there and seeing what it's like behind that reception desk and in the treatment rooms and in exam rooms. What does it look like really day to day to be a veterinarian? So I encourage you to get out there. You're almost done with high school.
I know, it's
I
very
am.
exciting. What city are you in, or what town, Tamara?
I'm in Montezuma.
Montezuma. Okay, fantastic. Well, do you know any other kids who are interested in veterinary medicine or other animal fields? Because they can come to our podcasts just like you
I
have done.
I do know. I think he still want to be a vet. I haven't asked him lately, but it is somebody else at my school. I know he into animals and everything, so I'll ask him.
All right, well, that's great. And you're certainly welcome to come back to all of our podcasts. We're going to be doing this now once a month. The podcasts themselves, we're going to be doing once a month beginning in October. Our next one is going to be on October 8th. And we have scheduled a veterinary surgeon to be with us on October 8th. And I'll be sending out information about that, you know, in the coming days. But we will have one a month through the end of the 2022-2023 academic year, with the exception of Christmas, obviously, and whatever spring break may be. So stay tuned. I encourage you to come back and share this information with people in your network who may be interested. And I thank you again, Antonia, so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to speak with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Definitely a pleasure. And if there's anything that I can help you with as a veterinary professional, when you go into your pathology residency, for example.
I will definitely be emailing you, because, whew, man.
All right. Well, I want to thank you again, everyone, for spending time with us on this Saturday morning, your time. It's evening for me, late afternoon for me. And we hopefully will see you on October 8th for our next podcast. Saying bye from YVI right now. Bye-bye.